Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another amazing episode of Conversation with Freedom. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. Man, I've been wanting her on the show for like some times now. Elizabeth Cunningham. Welcome to my podcast.
Oh my gosh, Freedom. I am so happy to be here. This is so great. You're fantastic.
For someone who never heard of Elizabeth, please tell us more about yourself and what you do.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Elizabeth Cunningham. Currently I live in Seattle, Washington in the United States. But I'm originally from Nebraska, which is like in the middle of the United States. No one has ever heard of it ever before.
Yeah.
Um, um, and what I do, I help people with relationships. Like my background, I have a degree in political science and women, gender, and sexuality studies with a emphasis in religion. And basically, what I studied is the intersection of politics, gender, and religion, and how all of those things impact sexuality and relationships. And so I worked at a domestic violence center for about 3 years in Kansas. And after 3 years, I did community education and outreach. And so I gave talks, trainings, created programs
Yeah.
around how to be in like how to recognize unhealthy relationships and how to get out of like
Mhm.
abusive or toxic relationships and like
Yeah.
what those are. But I realized that I really wanted to help people like get into healthy relationships,
Yeah.
rather than help people get out of very unhealthy ones.
Yeah.
And so I switched, and that's when I found transformational life coaching, and that was something that really changed my life. And so it was kind of the avenue that I chose to begin to help people myself. And so I've been a transformational life coach since 2016. And I
Mm.
have been coaching people inside of polyamorous relationships since 2017.
Yeah.
And so for those of you who don't know what polyamory is,
Yes.
there's a lot of misconceptions about polyamory.
Yes.
Um,
True. True. I'm sorry to cut you. That's one of the reasons why I wanted you on the show. I wanted you to come and share that with us.
Yes, yeah. So I help people mainly with polyamorous relationships. I personally am polyamorous. I've been polyamorous since 2010. And so what polyamory is, poly means many, amory means love, and so it just means many loves. And for most polyamorous people, what that means is like multiple relationships. So there's there's a whole big umbrella
Yeah.
called non-monogamy. And so inside of non-monogamy, sometimes people just practice having multiple sexual relationships, which
Mhm.
is totally fine, awesome, good for them, as long as you are a consenting adult, like good for you.
Yeah.
And, but like what I help people with is navigating multiple relationships. And like people who want to like have more of a commitment to each other than just perhaps the sexual component of a relationship. And so I've been helping people with that since 2017. And I took my business full time in 2020. One of my like bragging rights, I guess, as an entrepreneur is that I built a six-figure business in 6 months at the in 2020. So I was really proud of myself for that.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's what I've been doing. I've created a program called Love Deeper where that's what I do. I help people who are most of the time I help people who are beginning the like becoming polyamorous, like navigating the beginning stages of that.
Yeah.
But I do have clients who are like they've been polyamorous for a while and they realize that they never learned the tools that they really needed to like make these relationships very successful.
Yeah.
And so I help people with that too. So yeah, that is the longer version of me and what polyamory is.
Wow. Wow. So I know nothing about polyamory. I know nothing. I feel like I'm also learning.
Yeah. Well,
What?
this is perfect because then ask all of your questions because then
Yes, yes,
we can learn
yes,
about it
yes.
together. This is so great.
What are some of misconception around polyamory that people have and that you would like to maybe debunk?
Yeah, one of them is that like polyamory is actually just cheating. So like so let's break that down a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Um, so cheating by definition is being deceitful, lying about something, breaking an agreement, saying that you were going to do something, and then not only like, in monogamy, right? Like being like, I'm only going to be with you, like in this relationship. And that can mean different things even in monogamy too. Like sometimes cheating in monogamy for people is just having sex with another person. Like that's cheating.
Yeah.
But sometimes cheating in monogamy is like even like wanting to have sex with another person or like emotionally cheating, like emotionally having a relationship outside of this one relationship. So
How does, yeah, I wanted to tell me more about that emotionally in a
yeah.
relationship with like, how does,
Yeah, so like so if inside of your relationship
yeah.
and we're talking about monogamy right now. So monogamy means you are with only one other person in a romantic relationship,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so sometimes in monogamy, people consider cheating if you are emotionally involved with someone. And
Mm,
so what that means, and again, this is like broad strokes because it can mean different things to different people,
yeah.
right? So broad strokes, what that means is that you are emotionally invested in another person, and maybe that emotional investment also has feelings of attraction to it, even if you might not be like specifically acting on like the physical attraction part, you're
Yeah.
still acting on that emotional part. Like maybe you're spending more time with them, or maybe you're having like really in-depth vulnerable conversations, or that like when you like someone and you have that like shared emotional connection,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So some people in monogamy consider, some people in polyamory consider that cheating. But some people like consider that cheating, like even if there's not a physical aspect of that relationship, because it's outside of the agreements of the original relationship.
Oh,
And the other part of cheating is that you're being deceitful or lying about it. So
mm,
when I say being deceitful, I mean that even if you're not explicitly lying, that
yeah.
you are omitting the truth, like you're not sharing,
Oh,
right? Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? Like, because
yeah.
some people are like, I'm not lying, I'm just not talking about it. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like you're still being deceitful. Like you're trying to find a loophole in your shittiness right now, okay? Like, stop it.
Yeah.
So, there's a misconception about polyamory that it's just cheating, or that it's like cheating with permission, which doesn't make any sense. Like if you have the consent of all adults involved, that completely nullifies cheating. Like that is the opposite of cheating,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Right? Like freedom, if you and I were in a relationship together and
Yeah.
I was like, hey, you know what I'm going to do, freedom, is I'm really into this. We're in a polyamorous relationship, let's say.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, hey, freedom, I met this other person. They're awesome. I think I'm going to go on a date with them. And because we're in a polyamorous relationship, and we've agreed to this, you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, cool, awesome, Elizabeth.
Sure.
Like, that's not cheating. Like, that is three consenting adults having a conversation about exactly what we're doing and all being on board with it. Like, all being like, yes, thumbs up, let's do that. Perfect.
Oh,
Right?
so,
Yeah. So, like, that's what polyamory is.
oh,
Polyamory is consenting adults being like, hey, we're going to have multiple different types of relationships with one another, and we're all cool with that.
mm,
Right. And so, yeah, so that's one of the misconceptions about polyamory is that it's like cheating. It's like, no, it's no, no.
so,
And there is cheating inside of polyamory because people are still people, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
people can still lie. Like, people can still be deceitful. I don't
Mm.
understand why people lie and be like, I've been cheated on in polyamorous relationships. And I'm like, why? Like, why did you lie about that? Like, we have an agreement that like you can go be with other people. Like,
Yes, yes.
what?
It
What?
doesn't,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
it makes no sense. Like, you just lied because you wanted to? Like, what?
Mm.
Absolute silliness. So
Ah,
yeah, so that's a myth. That is a myth and misconception about polyamory.
so Liz, is there maybe a specific, maybe a maximum number of partners that one can have in a polyamory relationship? Let's say you and I are in a relationship. I mean, is there maybe a number that I don't know. I wanna. How do I? Is there maybe a number of people that I can say you can't be having maybe five partners, or you just be like whoever you are attracted to, you can. Is there
Right.
maybe a rules or I don't know.
Yeah, so that's a good question.
Yeah.
And that like you don't know what you did, but you just opened up a whole doorway. This is fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so coming from, I want you to consider that monogamy and polyamory are two different mindsets,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Like, there's the mindset that you have in monogamy because you're like, this is the one person that I have. And also, in our culture, in our society, in most places in the world, monogamy is the assumed type of relationship.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of assumptions and it's not like explicitly talked about,
Mm,
right? And so in polyamory, it's a separate mindset. And so the mindset in polyamory is um, a little bit more like uncharted waters, right? Like, you're
oh,
trying to find your own map of it. And
yeah.
so as you're trying to find your own map, you have to talk about what works and what doesn't work in those relationships,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. And so what doesn't work, because what doesn't work in those relationships is trying to control other people's behavior and
Oh.
what they can and can't do. Like, that's an assumption in monogamous relationships that I
Yeah.
can dictate as a partner. I can dictate what my partner can and can't do. They
Mm,
can't look at other women. They, can't and this is like either explicitly said or not explicitly said, right?
yeah.
So like, they can't look at other women or other people, whatever the gender may be. They can't even, maybe they can't even talk with other women. Sometimes in monogamous relationships, people are like, you can't even be friends with,
True. Yeah.
etc.,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Mm,
So like, there's a lot of control in that. But again, if we think about it as a mindset,
mm,
right? Where in polyamorous relationships, that doesn't work because you're having two people who are both saying, and in this example, you're having two people. There's also a thing called solo polyamory where you are operating in polyamorous relationships on your own. So it's not like
oh,
operating off of a couple,
oh,
right? So just so you know, like, people can operate in polyamory like on their own. Like it's not necessarily a couple's thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but for this example, we're in a couple and there's not a lot of room to like it devolves very quickly
Mm,
if you try to control the other person, because polyamory is really about like that freedom and exploration
mm,
and the space, the openness to be able to explore that attraction with other people. And so if you start to put caps on your partner, it is not going to work very well. So there's a thing
oh,
in polyamory and it's called, so there's like rules versus agreements is the
okay.
language that's commonly used. And
Yeah.
so a rule is something that you would use to control someone. So
Oh,
that would be something like you're only allowed to have two other partners besides me, or you can only date other women, you can't date other men, or something like that,
yeah.
right? Those are the pretty common. But an agreement is something that it's like we both agree on. It has nothing to do with wanting to control the other person,
Mm,
right? So it's like we agree, like as a really really simple example, like we agree that if we have sex with someone else that we're going to use protection, like we're going to have safe sex
yeah.
if we have sex with someone else, and we all agree that we are having safe sex practices and that we're having conversations about it. Like we agree that we're going to share any STI status that we have,
Mm,
like we agree that we're going to, like if I know that a new partner has other partners,
yeah.
I'm going to ask not only about like their STI status, I'm
Yeah.
going to ask about their other partner's STI statuses too,
Oh,
right? So like,
okay.
so that's an agreement, like as an example, is just like we all agree that we're going to be open about this thing, right?
Mm,
So like, so yeah, so it's a lot more open,
yes. Yeah.
and that makes it really scary for people. Like having a lack of control makes things really scary for people. And I also want to note too that people don't think that they're trying to be controlling, because when I say control, people are like, oh, that's bad, like that's a bad, and I'm not a bad person, Elizabeth, and so I wouldn't be controlling. And I'm like, consider that controlling, like take away like the good or bad of controlling, and like
Yeah.
as human beings we just try to control things, like it's a safety thing. Like
Mm,
there's a presumed threat, right? Like in monogamy there's a presumed threat that if you go talk with someone else and you find them attractive, that you're going to leave me, or that it's going to cause
true.
our
Yes.
relationship,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so the want to control someone is safety and security. But
Mm,
the problem is you're trying to control another human being,
I
and like that is going to only cause problems.
true.
Um yeah. Um so I so oh, okay, the other thing that you said, I was like there's one other thing that I wanted to share about that.
So
So the other thing that you said was about like how many partners.
yeah.
So there's a term in polyamory and it's called it, and it's polysaturated. And so what polysaturated means is that you are at capacity. Like you can't, like even if you meet someone who you think is awesome, like you are full, like you already have, and like
Yeah.
and that's different for different people, and it's also different at different times in your life too. Like you could be single, like you could not be dating anyone and be, polysaturated, because maybe you just had a baby, or maybe,
Oh, yeah.
like maybe you just lost your job, like you're like, I'm not trying to like date anyone right now.
Oh, I okay.
Maybe Yeah, like so there's other circumstances that are happening in your life that also might make you polysaturated. Like I run a business. Like my business is like having, 10 relationships. And
Mm,
so like
yeah.
I like if I were only dating people, maybe I would date more people, but like I'm not only dating people. Like I'm dating people, I'm running a business, I have I have a family, like all like I have other things going on in my life. And that's I think that also leads to another misconception about polyamory is that like we're just like always dating and like having sex
Yeah.
with people all the time. Like, and that's like not true. Like there's other stuff going on. And we are also like human beings who are functioning in the world, living our lives.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Like we have friends, like we go on trips, like all of that, right?
So,
Oh.
so, Liz, don't one get maybe attached to one? Maybe you are in, let's say we are in a relationship and you have this other partner. How often does it happen that one maybe get attached more to that relationship and not commit to this other one? Maybe gives a lot of time or she gives a lot of time to maybe that person. Do you get it?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna answer it and then you tell me if I understood you correctly. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna use the comparison of friendships.
Yeah.
So like you have multiple friends in
Yeah.
your life.
Mhm.
Like we could say that we're all polyamorous with friends,
True, true, true.
right? Like
Yes.
we don't have just like one best friend and we're like, you are my friend for life
Mm,
and you cannot be friends with anyone else except
yeah,
for me,
yeah.
you know? Right? Like that's not how friendships work. Like,
Yes.
so we're already like familiar with the practice of polyamory inside of friendships,
Ah,
right?
wow, that's an eye-opening. I'm like, now I
Yeah.
get it. Yeah.
And so inside of your friendships, there are it ebbs and flows, right? Like
Mm,
you have like your one best friend who you have had for your entire life. And that's awesome. That's fantastic. I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And at certain times you meet other people, you think that they're really cool. Maybe sometimes in your life like you had this friend for like 3 years, but now you've kind of drifted out of each other's lives and
Yeah.
that's okay. That's
Yeah.
really okay. Like
Yes.
that happens
Yes.
sometimes, where
Yes.
it's just like
Yes.
your
Yes.
lives go in different directions or like you lose touch or whatever,
Mm,
right? So it's kind of the same thing where it's like, yeah, in polyamory,
mm,
like maybe you have a life partner and that's fantastic. And you also, and maybe you have multiple life partners, just like sometimes you have multiple friends who are with you for your entire life,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just like, so it's the same thing. And then, you have other people who kind of like ebb and flow out of your life. And you have some people who like you see once a year, but it's you still like love them. Like you still, you catch up with them and you're like, oh my God, it's been so long. I love you so much. This is so great. Like, and it's the same thing in polyamory, except for in you just add a romantic and sexual component to the relationship. And the romantic and sexual is like and or because like sometimes you have polyamorous relationships that don't have anything to do with sex like whatsoever, right?
Really?
Like there's the term like platonic queer relationships, or like if you're someone who's asexual, maybe you just have romantic relationships and you don't have any sexual relationships, or like there's a whole like world of different possibilities of what could happen, and it's all based off of what works for the individual and then
Mm,
what works
yeah.
for the individual with the other person. And it's the same thing with friendships. It's like, this is the type of person I am. I'm someone who I don't know, like as an example, like I run, like I'm in a running club. And so like I have like my running club friends, and like maybe there's one person in the running club that I really connect with more than the other people in the running
Okay.
club. And so me and this person, like, we're going to start hanging out more often. We're going to like we're gonna start planning, like maybe we go on a road trip, together. And it doesn't have to be sexual. Like it doesn't have to be, like it can just be like friends, right? And
Mm.
so there's that inside of polyamory. But sometimes it's like maybe that does turn into a sexual relationship. Maybe it does turn into a romantic relationship. But inside of that relationship, it's based off of the desires of those two people and
Mm.
the agreements that they have together,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Does that make
yeah.
sense?
It does a
Yeah.
lot, a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks
Okay.
for thanks for sharing. I now get it.
Yeah. Awesome.
I now get it. I'm like, that's why I was taking a deep breath. I was like digesting everything and like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, because we all have relationships in our lives. And so we all understand the concept of meeting someone, figuring out how we vibe, you know, moving from there, right? Like we all do that all the time,
True, true.
right? It's just like,
Yes.
it's just with polyamory, it's just there's the possibility of like sexual and romantic connections,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that you've come across? You've been doing this for some times now. What are some of the challenges that you've come across and the lessons that you've learned?
Like me personally,
Yes, on your journey.
um, hmm, I think one of the biggest, this is funny because I was just thinking about this yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, like kind of being like, how did it start and how is it going now? You
Mm.
know?
Yes.
And I think how one of the things is that when I first started practicing polyamory, I would really take people's feelings really personally. Like make people's feelings mean something about me. Like
Mm.
if they were jealous, or if they were upset, or if they were unhappy, or even if they were like really really happy with me, or like really happy with another person, like I really took that on really personally. Like I needed to do something about that. Like I needed to be responsible for their feelings in some way, or help them with their feelings in some way. And that has shifted into more being empathetic towards people's feelings and like what they're dealing with, and like my partners, like being empathetic to like what they're dealing with and how they feel, like even if they're upset, and not taking it personally, like not taking it on like this is my responsibility to like fix or do something about or change in some way,
Wow.
like I have a like I have a partner right now who's like really struggling with some of the feelings that they're having.
Yeah.
And me before would have been like, oh no, like this is a terrible problem. I need to do something about this. Like I would get super worried about it. I would be like upset. Like I would be like, like something needs to change. We need to figure this out, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm just like, okay, I really get that like you're struggling with this. Like, what kind of support do you need around that? Do you just need me to listen to you? Like, and I know what I'm available for. Like if they did ask, if they were like, well, you need to do something about it, I'd be like, no, like that's not my responsibility. Like your feelings are not my responsibility. I'm here to support you. I'm here to like be with you. You know, I'll reassure you, but like they're not my feelings. They're your feelings. So what do you need, right?
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
that's so powerful. That's so powerful because a lot of times we get more involved into other people's feeling and yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So that has been a huge lesson.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Hmm.
You're so
Yeah.
powerful.
Oh, thanks, Freedom.
It's so amazing.
Oh, thank you. That's
He's so super smart. He's so amazing. Liz, you were sharing some of the challenges that you've come across.
yeah. So I think I mean there's a lot. We could probably make an entire like, documentary about like
Yes,
polyamory,
yes, yeah,
challenges.
yeah.
And just like, in general, like relationships just have challenges. Like it's challenging to be in relationships with humans. Like it's challenging. Um
True.
yeah, so another challenge that's specific to polyamory is like going through breakups in polyamory. Because if you have multiple partners and you are going through a breakup with one of the, like, let's say that you have three partners
Yeah,
and you're going through a breakup with one of those partners, that can be really challenging because, again, we're shifting from a monogamous mindset to a polyamorous mindset. And most of
yeah,
us have a monogamous mindset where then we're like, when a breakup happens, it's like, is it okay to like talk to my current partners about the struggles that I'm having with this other partner?
yeah,
Like, is that appropriate? Is it appropriate to lean on those partners for emotional support if it's a breakup with another partner? And it's very, it really varies on circumstances and the people in those circumstances. So I don't have like an answer
yeah,
um
yeah.
to
Sure.
to those, yeah, to those questions. In some circumstances it is. In some circumstances it's absolutely appropriate to, talk with your partners about what's going on with you in other relationships and leaning on them for that emotional support and things like that. And in some partnerships it's not like, that's not part of the it's not part of the agreements, or it's not part
Yeah,
of
yeah.
like the type of relationship that you have, or there's a lot of different circumstances that can prevent that from happening. So, and it's also like, just talking about internally, like internally it is challenging to deal with the like feelings of a breakup, like
Mm,
the being hurt, being angry, being sad, being betrayed, being frustrated,
yeah, true.
whatever, like all of those feelings that come up, and still being in really loving, supportive, like healthy relationships where it's like the feelings that come up in those circumstances are like really connected and like
Oh,
grateful and
yes.
warm and like intimate and all this stuff. So it's a very interesting internal space to hold all of that going on at the same time.
Mm,
And but in so doing, like, challenges also are an opportunity to grow. And so the opportunity in that is also to expand your own emotional intelligence and being able to hold all of those emotions at the same time, and to be able to navigate that in a way that is healthy, or like that works for you, or that works for the people around you, right? Without like, you know, I had a coach once who said, how can you communicate without vomiting on people? Um, because sometimes
Yeah.
we have this tendency to just like dump things on people and just like verbal
Mm,
vomit.
yeah.
And so it's also like, how do you communicate what you're dealing with in a way that is like not just dumping all of your stuff on like your partners or like the other people like in your life, right? And so it takes skill. Like relationships take skill. And I
Yeah.
think that we assume that we just should be good at romantic relationships. We should be good at sexual relationships. We should be good at it. And we're not, because like we're just not taught how to be responsible for
True,
ourselves,
true.
you know?
Yes, that's so
Like
true.
we're just not taught how to do that. And the assumption that we should know it is really detrimental, not only to people who are polyamorous, but to people who are monogamous too. Any relationship style, it is detrimental to just assume that you are good at it.
For people
Yeah.
who want to know more about your company, about the programs that you run, where
Mhm.
can they find you or how can they get involved?
Yeah,
Because I
absolutely.
know, sorry, because I know that some of my audience will like to maybe be part of some of the programs that you run online or some of, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is elizabethannCunningham.com. So that's Elizabeth with a Z. That's
Yeah.
Ann, Ann without an E. And then that's Cunningham. Like so two words, like cunning and ham.
Oh, yes.
um, .com. And then you can book a call with me. So if you are interested in working with me, if you are interested in finding out about the programs that I run, you can book a call with me. The booking link will either go to myself or Leanna. Leanna is my partner, and she's also she helps run the programs as well.
Mm.
So she's also a relationship coach also. So yeah, so the booking link will either connect you with me or with her. Either way, we will absolutely take care of you, answer all of your questions, and see if relationship coaching is a good fit for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What's next for you? Where would you like to see yourself and the company in the next, let's say, 5 years?
Ooh, that's a great question. I really want to have a school. Like I really want to have an online school that
Wow.
has like multiple different programs where people can learn the skills that you need to have healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Like whether that be inside of romance or sex or communication or mindset. There are mindsets inside of relationships, right? Emotional intelligence, like completing your past. Like a lot of what gets in the way of
Yeah.
relationships is that you look at the shitty things that have happened to you in your past, and then you're like, oh well, that's probably how it's going to go in the future. Like relationships suck, or like I can't
Mm.
trust anyone or whatever. Like you have to complete those things from your past so that you can move forward, so that you can have the relationships and the love that you want. So yeah, so things like that. How like teaching people about sexuality. Like people don't know about their own sexuality, or like how you're attracted to people. Like there are
Oh,
specific ways in which we're
I also don't know about that. I also don't know about that. I think you need to teach me.
yeah.
We'll find some times and you teach me. I know nothing about that.
Yeah, so I would really like to have an online school. I'd love to have an in-person school, but I don't know if that's in the 5-year plan.
Yeah.
But yeah, so definitely 5-year plan, online school. I'm going to start traveling around the world,
Yeah.
interviewing people about unconditional love. And that
Wow.
so So
That's so
I also have
amazing.
a yeah, so I also have a podcast as well. I'm probably
Yeah.
gonna rename it. Right now it's called the Love and Life Podcast with Elizabeth Cunningham. But I'm probably gonna rename it, rebrand it with this like new adventure of just, but yeah, that's
Mm.
what I want to do. I want to travel around the world. I want to interview people about unconditional love. Like this is my like purpose on the planet is
Wow.
to teach people about these things, is to learn myself, like I don't have all the answers, right?
Yes.
And so to learn myself, to discover like what is unconditional love, like is it even real, does it even exist, like
Yeah.
is that a thing, or like if it is, then like how do we, like what is the way that we connect to that, tap into that, because I honestly think these questions and these conversations and being in healthy relationships is something that's going to heal the planet. But
True. And Liz, talking about healing the planet, there are a lot of people who are going through mental health, who are going through depression. What are some of advice that you would give to someone who's in the dark? Someone who don't, yes.
you're not alone.
Hmm.
You're not alone, and there's nothing wrong with you.
Oh,
Like there's so many other people who are going through what you're going through. Like you are not alone. And in not being alone, like it's okay to reach out to people. It's okay to
mm,
talk about what you're going through with people. Like you are so not alone and people love you.
oh, that's so powerful. That's so powerful.
Thanks. Yeah. I really hope that, yeah, if you are someone who's really dealing with something, I really hope that you got that. Like you really are, you're not alone.
What are some of the books about polyamory, books that you've read that you would like maybe to recommend for people to check them out?
Yeah, I really like Polysecure by Jessica Fern. Um, she also has a new book, Polywise. I have not read her new book, but I have
Yeah.
read Polysecure. Highly recommend. It's about attachment styles in relationships and how it applies to polyamory. Great book. I also have, so I have some up here actually.
Yeah, I can see
Um,
you have a lot of books
yeah,
right there.
I know. The other one is The Polyamorous Paradox by Irene Morning. That is a really great book. It's a really easy read. Like the way that she writes is really easy to like follow
Mm,
along. And so like it's not like super jargony or anything like that. She talks a lot about her own personal experience.
yeah,
And so it's like part education, part stories. And so the polyamory paradox by Irene Morning, really great. I also have the Why It's Okay to Not Be Monogamous. And that's by Dr. Justin Clardy. Um, I really recommend, I have not read that book the whole way through,
yeah,
but I highly recommend. I just love like Justin Clardy is a great resource. He's also on Instagram. He is a philosophy professor, and he also teaches about non-monogamy. And he also talks a lot specifically about like people of color and
yeah.
non-monogamy, and really speaking specifically to people of color and their specific experiences. And so I always like, as a white woman, I can't really speak to people of color's experience.
Yes.
And so he is a really great resource for someone who identifies that way. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions for me?
No. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything, it's getting dark in here. Is there anything that you would like to share with us that I didn't ask?
however you're feeling inside of your own sexuality and your desires, there is nothing wrong with you. Like, there's nothing wrong with whatever it is that you desire. There are responsible ways to go about getting what you desire, and there are irresponsible ways for going about it, but there's nothing wrong with how you feel. Right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what I'd like to impart.
This is the question which I ask everyone who come on the podcast. When it is all said and done, how would you like to be remembered?
Oh my God, what a great question. I would love to be remembered as like, I would love to be remembered just as the person who spread unconditional love, like, or just love in general. Like, I just like, oh man, like, at my funeral, like, I hope that people say something like, Elizabeth was so dedicated to just love and loving people, and she did so much great work on the planet. And dang, she was super fun to be around too. I hope that's what they say.
Ah, you're so amazing, and I really would like to have you again on the show. I feel like there's a lot of things that I want to ask. There are a lot of things. I mean, there's still a lot that we need to talk about. This was just the
I'm here
beginning.
for it.
Thank you so much, Liz. I truly appreciate you taking the time to do this with me. I really, this really means a lot to me. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
You're so welcome. I'm so happy that you reached out. I would absolutely love to come on your show again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Where can people get hold of you on social media before we go?
Yeah. So I am at Els Cunningham pretty much everywhere. So at ELZ Cunningham.
Yeah,
Um, and I think on Facebook I'm Coach Els Cunningham, but everywhere else like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everywhere else I am
yeah.
ELZ Cunningham. So that's where you can find me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Stay blessed.
Yeah.